The OnePlus Buds 4 are here, and today I'm going to be scoring and ranking them against the best of the best budget earbuds in a total of 10 categories. Now, I don't know what the retail price is, but I grabbed them off AliExpress for 105 Aussie dollars. So these are not the global version, it's the Chinese version, I'm pretty sure. So here's my current leaderboard. The sub $100 market is seriously competitive. The OnePlus Buds 3 were number one for a long time and have been my go-to recommendation since they were released. But you could honestly go for any of the top 7 buds in my ranking and you're gonna be fine. There really isn't a standout bud yet, so let's see if the Buds 4 can be the standout bud. So let's get into it. Category 1 is comfort. You probably guessed I'm scoring them a 9 out of 10, as I do for most stem style buds. So you get 3 sizes of ear tips included. I use the largest, they work really well for me. The ear tips and ergonomics are pretty much identical to the OnePlus Buds 3. The stem on the Buds 4 is a bit chunkier, but it feels exactly the same in my ear as the Buds 3. So it's a slightly shallow fit. It's gonna be super comfortable and should work for most ear sizes. But this shallow fit can negatively affect the security of the fit. Still, I'm scoring the Buds 4 an 8 out of 10 for security, as I keep the scoring pretty close here. The Buds with a score of 9 do include a wing for some extra security. But at least for me, the Buds 4 work great when weight training or running. However, I have seen some comments about the Buds 3 of people having issues with the fit and the Buds just slipping out. This could be due to the slightly more shallow fit. So if the Buds 3 didn't fit you well, the Buds 4 are gonna be exactly the same. You can almost fix this with the SpinFit Omni ear tips as they give you a deeper fit. However, on the Buds 4, the largest size that fits in the case is going to be medium, where on the Buds 3, the large ear tip will fit in the case. But anyway, if you use your buds when you're exercising, you do get an IP55 dust and water resistant rating on the buds, same as the Buds 3. All right, now category 3 is case and battery life. I'm scoring the Buds 4 an 8 out of 10. So you get an advertised 6.5 hours in the buds, 27 hours in total with the case. That's with noise cancelling on. Goes up to 11 hours and 45 hours with noise cancelling off. But the highest scored buds on my ranking do give you closer to about 8 hours in the buds with noise cancelling on. Now, when it comes to fast charge, I couldn't find any information about this, so I'm just gonna guess it's 10 minutes in the case will give you 2 hours playback on the earbuds, which is what the Buds 3 have. The case can't be charged wirelessly, which at this price is like fair enough, but Earfun and Soundcore do offer wireless charging on their cases. But the case itself is quite compact. It's one of the thinner cases. It's almost the exact same size and thickness as the Buds 3. The build quality is definitely on the higher end in this price range. And the case itself is only slightly thicker than the Nothing EA, which is the thinnest case on my ranking. All right, now category 4 is controls. And OnePlus is still giving you the best controls. I'm scoring them a 9 out of 10. You get the same controls as the Buds 3. So you get touch controls with a single, double, triple tap and long hold. And you also get a swipe gesture for volume or track control. You get pretty decent customization. So you can add in volume, voice assistant, even in game mode, and you can change your ambient control switching as well. You just can't mute your microphone using the touch controls when you're on a phone call, but you are able to adjust volume and change between noise cancelling on and off and transparency mode. Surprisingly, a lot of buds don't allow this. You still get wear-in detection as well to automatically pause and play your music. Just be sure to only grab the bud by the stem for it to activate properly, as the sensor uses skin detection, so just don't have your index finger on the top of the bud. This does mean you can chuck like one bud in your pocket, for example, and the wear-in detection won't activate. Now the Buds 3 and now the Buds 4 are the only buds in this ranking that have swipe control. And I think this is the best way to just be able to quickly adjust your volume up and down. And it is nice that you have the option to add track control in. So you could have one earbud as volume control, the other earbud using swipe for track control. And this frees up more options with a double tap and triple tap. Because with this swipe control, you probably don't want to use a single tap. Just with the location of the sensor, like swiping up and down on the outside of the bud. If I was like on the move or if I'm like training and my hands were a bit sweaty, I would go and activate it and like kind of miss swipe, and then that would activate the single tap. So by default, the single tap is off. Kind of makes sense why. So I'd say this is where the Buds 3 has a slight advantage with that kind of curved part of the stem at the top. It's a little bit smoother to swipe the bud, but look, the more practice you get with the Buds 4, you kind of get a good feel for it. So this is like the only downside of having touch controls and swipe controls. Like ideally, having squeeze controls and swipe control on the inside of the bud would be the best, which is like what a bud like the OnePlus Buds Pro 3 have. But look, I understand OnePlus have to cut costs with these buds, so this is a fair area to do that. All right, now category 5 is connectivity. I'm scoring the Buds 4 a 9.5 out of 10. So you get Bluetooth 5.4, SBC, AAC, and LHDC high res. Sadly, no LDAC, also no aptX adaptive. Now, if you follow my channel, you know I think high res really doesn't make a huge difference. What makes the most difference with sound is how the buds are tuned and how you EQ them. But another slight issue here is when using one earbud with the other in the case, the single bud you're using won't work in mono mode. So if you're using the right earbud, you're only gonna hear the right audio channel, not the left and the right. Same case as the Buds 3. But you do get multi-point connection, so you can have two devices connected to the Buds at the same time. You just need to pause playback on one device before playing it on the other device for that audio to kick in. And you also get a low latency gaming mode here, which brings the latency down to a very suitable level, even for quicker reaction games like shooters, some of the lowest latency on my ranking. All right, now category 6 is call quality, and I run through 3 tests here: a quiet room, simulation crowd noise, and a simulation windy city with construction noise. Total score is the average of all 3 tests, rounded up to the nearest half. Now here's all my scoring. The Buds 4 get an 8.5 out of 10. In my test, the call quality was basically the same as the Buds 3, which is great because they have some of the best call quality. So here are some samples compared to the Buds 3, as well as one of the highest ranked Nothing EA.
All right, here's the call quality of the OnePlus Buds 3 in a quiet room. All right, here's the call quality of the OnePlus Buds 4 in a quiet room. All right, here's the call quality of the Nothing EA in a quiet room.
All right, now we're gonna see how the microphones block out some simulation crowd noise.
All right, here's the OnePlus Buds 3 with some simulation crowd noise. All right, here's the OnePlus Buds 4 with some simulation crowd noise. All right, here's the Nothing EA with some simulation crowd noise.
All right, now we're going to see how the microphones block out some city noise, construction noise, and some simulation wind.
All right, here is the OnePlus Buds 3 with some city noise, construction noise, and some simulation wind. All right, here is the OnePlus Buds 4 with some city noise, construction noise, and some simulation wind. All right, here is the Nothing EA with some city noise, construction noise, and some simulation wind.
All right, category 7 is app customization and extra features. Scoring the Buds 4 a 9 out of 10. All the features are exactly the same as the Buds 3. So you can get the Hey Melody app on iOS or Android, and it works great, super reliable app. So from the top there, you get battery of the Buds, noise cancelling settings with some strength adjustment. The only new feature here is the adaptive transparency mode, which I'll cover in the transparency section. 3D audio is basically spatial audio without head tracking, and it's quite good. When it comes to sound customization, you get 3 EQ presets, a bass wave slider to dynamically increase bass, as well as a 6-band EQ that works quite well. Golden Sound is a hearing test that measures your left and right ear to create a custom EQ for you. You've also got a game mode toggle, connected devices, Find My Earbuds that'll emit a beat from the buds, and more settings. Has things like your wearing detection toggle, earbud fit test, and prompt tone volume adjustment. So solid stuff overall. All right, now category 8 is noise cancelling, and I test my noise cancelling here by playing simulation plane noise and crowd noise nice and loud on my soundbar. Now here are all the scores. I am giving the Buds 4 a 10 out of 10. Keep in mind I score the plane noise and crowd noise separately, which you can check in my spreadsheet. So the Buds 4 got a 10 for plane noise and 9.5 for the crowd noise, but rounding it up, it becomes 10. Anyway, it's quite a noticeable improvement over the Buds 3. The noise cancelling is basically on par with the OnePlus Buds Pro 3, which is their flagship earbud, and these are cheaper, so can't complain there. As I said, you get some strength adjustment. There's an adaptive mode, which will automatically adjust the strength, but I just have it set to high all the time. Now, when it comes to EQ shift, this is your sound quality changing between noise cancelling on, noise cancelling off, and transparency mode. And all I'm noticing here is with noise cancelling off, there's about a 5% bass increase, which is on the low side. There was slightly more EQ shift on the Buds 3. You also get an automatic wind reduction mode here, as seen on the Buds 3. So automatic wind reduction works if like you're outside on a windy day with noise cancelling on and the mics start to pick up wind, it'll turn the noise cancelling off so you don't hear that wind pickup through the earbuds. So when no more wind is detected, it takes about 6 seconds for the noise cancelling to automatically turn back on. And it kind of like slowly shifts in and out of it. It's not like a sudden change. Now I think this really isn't needed because the wind pickup isn't that loud with noise cancelling on, and you don't get any option to turn this off. So you're kind of stuck with it. But continuing on here, you're able to use noise cancelling if you're using one earbud at a time with the other in the case. All right, now category 9 is a transparency mode. And with the scoring, I'm taking into account clarity, how much white noise hiss, and how much occlusion there is. Occlusion is like that blocked ear effect you get when you speak yourself. So here's all my scoring. The Buds 4 get an 8.5 out of 10. Overall, it's the best transparency mode, but I do have some complaints because the clarity is great. It's a very natural sounding transparency mode. Nothing is too amplified, and the occlusion is very low. My issue here is that the strength of the transparency will adjust based off the noise around you. So if you're sitting in a quiet environment and there's no noise around you, the strength will get turned down. This is to reduce the white noise hiss. And if you're around like some moderate sound or loud sounds, it'll turn the strength up, which will in turn increase the amount of white noise hiss, which is like, in theory, it's a good thing, but I like to just have my transparency mode on when I'm at home so I can like hear things in the distance or if someone's knocking on the door or whatever. So in that situation, I'm not able to hear my surroundings as well because there's no noise around me. So in most situations, you should be fine, but it would have been nice to be able to turn this feature on or off. Kind of similar to the wind reduction with noise cancelling, which sadly does carry over to the transparency mode. Again, the mics don't really pick up wind that loud, but even slight gusts of wind, the transparency mode is going to turn off. So if you're like running, for example, even if it's not a windy day, your transparency mode is just not going to work. From forward momentum, it's just going to pick up wind either way. So again, would have been nice to be able to turn that automatic wind reduction off. And next, the new feature here is the adaptive transparency mode, as seen on buds like the AirPods Pro 2 and Samsung Galaxy Buds 3 Pro. So this mode is just like a transparency mode that will blend noise cancelling in when noise is picked up around you, different to the automatic wind reductions. So in my testing, it doesn't work that well. It takes a bit of time for the noise cancelling to start turning on. And it's like a smooth transition to turning it on. And then it takes about 5 seconds for the transparency mode to turn back on when no more sound is detected. Now, I personally like using this on my AirPods Pro 2 around the house. It's very seamless. It works really well. I'll like quickly turn on a tap. Within like 2 seconds, the noise cancelling will turn on. Same if I turn on a kettle. And this is great because it means I don't have to adjust the volume of my earbuds if there's a lot of noise around me. So in all 3 of those tests, the Buds 4 didn't turn the noise cancelling on because the sound wasn't loud enough. So the sound around you has to be quite loud for it to kind of react. So again, in theory, it's a good idea. It just needs to be worked on a bit. Despite all my complaints here, these are like small extras. The overall transparency mode is the best on the ranking. All right, now onto the final round, sound quality. Start here with my max volume test. I got just over 114 decibels, which is like on the lower side for my ranking, but you really shouldn't be listening above 85 decibels. So you're getting enough volume here. For me personally, above 70% was a bit too loud for me. But now onto the sound quality itself, I'm scoring the Buds 4 a 9.5 out of 10. And what I love here is that you get some great sound quality right out of the box without even having to EQ the buds much. I feel like OnePlus tuned them for me specifically. Now, we all have different preferences, but I like a slightly bass boosted tuning. I still want my bass to not be muddy or over the top. I want nice separation, and I really appreciate a nice crisp treble response and some nice upper treble sparkle. That's exactly what you get with the Buds 4. The stock tuning is actually quite different to the Buds 3. They have a slightly brighter stock tuning, but still sound great. I just prefer the Buds 4. It's a bit smoother and you get detail basically on par with the Buds 3. Still, this is my go-to EQ for the Buds 4. I just dial the bass down ever so slightly and boost the lower mids and treble as well. And the treble really is a standout for me. It's a perfect combo of treble and upper treble. So there's just enough precision and some sparkle and airiness at the same time. It's also not pushed to a point of getting too harsh, which was a slight issue on the Buds 3. Now I often test out treble based off how hi-hats sound in my music. Being a drummer myself, I really appreciate a nice sounding hi-hat, and hi-hats on the Buds 4 to sound great. So I wouldn't say the treble is as direct as a bud like the Buds 3 or the Soundpeats Capsule 3 Pro Plus. The treble is actually quite similar to the Galaxy Buds FE, but I think the treble on the Buds 4 just has a bit more realism. Now the mids here are smooth but clear. It's a pretty natural experience. Nothing's overly boosted. Same with the upper mids, clear but not over the top, so instruments have nice detail and presence. And the soundstage is also quite open. The bass also kicks in quite hard, even with my slight reduction. So this is a nice balance of deep sub bass. It's going to kick in when needed. There's a rich mid bass response. There's a little bit of punch, not over the top, not bloated or anything like that. It's again, my perfect kind of bass response. Overall, I think the bass is an improvement over the Buds 3. It's a bit richer. And it's just a solid all-round tuning. The stock EQ is great, which gives you a nice starting point to tailor the sound to your liking, which I did with the EQ. You can try out the hearing test. For me, it just kept the same stock tuning, but it increased the volume, so it made it seem like it was louder, but matched for volume, it was pretty much the same as the stock tuning. And the 3D audio, aka spatial audio without head tracking, is the best on this ranking. It's basically the same as the Buds 3. If you follow me, I really don't like spatial audio, but OnePlus actually do it quite well. You get that kind of surround sound effect. The sound comes from slightly more in front of you. And I would say it actually improves the instrument separation slightly. It still adds a little bit of that reverb effect that just comes with spatial audio. So I think it's actually quite usable, even just songs off your random playlist. I think it's gonna work better with movies as well as gaming. So try it out, it's pretty decent. So overall with sound, I do have the Buds 4 scored the same as the Soundpeats Capsule 3 Pro Plus. Once I've EQ'd the Capsule 3 Pro Plus quite a bit, they sound very similar to the Buds 4, at least to my ears. The Pro Plus has maybe slightly better instrument separation, but I do prefer the treble on the Buds 4. But it's being straight up, all the Buds that have a score of 9, even an 8.5, give you very impressive sound. For me, it's the treble on the Buds 4 that separates them from the other earbuds. At the same time, you're able to push out quite a decent amount of bass whilst retaining as much clarity, which is what I'm looking for with my sound. And if you're a bit more of a bass head, you can chuck on that bass wave slider up to 4 or 5, or just use the Bass Boost EQ preset, and you can push out some very over the top bass head certified bass. And it also retains at high volumes, which I don't recommend doing, but if you want to try it, I did test it out. But that wraps up all 10 categories. And before we go into the final score, you can customize the scoring with my free spreadsheet linked down below. On there, you can also check all my notes, specs, there's a call quality tab, and you can customize the scoring for each category, and that'll give you a new custom ranking. But now the final scores are in, and the Buds 4 easily take the first spot with a score of 89 out of 100. You can tell throughout the video, they're a solid bud. Now I'm honestly kind of relieved to see this, because for the last like 6 months, the top 7 buds are all so close that I never really had like an easy recommendation, but the easy recommendation is now going to be the OnePlus Buds 4. The only minor issues to keep in mind is that you only get LHDC high res, there's no LDAC or aptX adaptive, and there's also the automatic wind reduction with noise cancelling and transparency. Apart from that, they're a flawless bud. If those minor issues don't do it for you, then really just check out any of the top 7 buds. One of them is going to work out for you. Really depends on the price they're at with where you're located. But be sure to check out my spreadsheet to compare any minor detail that might matter more to you. That wraps it up. If you're interested in a different type of earbud, like a clip-on earbud, check out my comparison video right here. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Stay picky, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye now.